Welcome back to PitBox Social. Adam is back. My voice is somewhat restored, so you don't have to just hear Pat and Tyler yap about whatever they were yapping about for the past 2 weeks. But that's okay. They did a great job in my absence, so I do appreciate it. So kudos to Pat and Tyler. This is as much y'all show as it is mine, because Lord, I couldn't have done it the last few weeks without y'all. So I appreciate y'all.
We found out we don't really need you.
Yeah. So I'm definitely
this conversation. Actually, I'm glad we're all here today.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I'm just here for the tech support and the editing. But luckily, we have not had to edit much. We've adopted a little bit of language, which is okay.
Yeah, it's not our choice.
Sorry,
our editing team decided we don't need to edit anymore. But welcome back.
Yeah, it's good.
We've glad you're well.
We've had good banter. But yeah, definitely feeling better. Definitely can talk now. The kids are like, "Oh, you can talk again." Now we actually have to follow rules and stuff. So that's okay. So today we're going to cover a few different things. We're going to get a weekend update from Tyler, who has been killing it in Lambeau. We're going to get an update from Pat from his weekend at the track with Jay Zilla and cover some topics there. And then we're going to go over some, I guess maybe some new rules that have been implemented in a few different series, and just kind of walk through the last week. And then coming up this week, if you're around Road Atlanta, the HSR Historics are coming up this week. So we'll even maybe dive into that, because I know Pat Wilmot there has raced his Mustang there a few times. And Tyler, are you coaching and racing this weekend there as well?
Yeah, I'll be there in 2, maybe 3 cars, but we've got.
Gotcha. Yeah, you're there with one of the Chuckleheads, and then the other guy from California.
Yeah, Mike Cobb's bringing 2 cars, and then Danny might be bringing his Mustang. So
okay, good. And then I know Bob's running the Lambo, so I'm sure you'll be helping him as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Since you're at the track. All right. Well, let's get into it. Tyler, let's get a weekend update from your Super Trofeo races. They ended up pretty well, but some interesting, new news for that series, and we'll chat about some of that.
Yeah, we had a great weekend. Indy was good to us. We finished 4th and 2nd. Wesley did a great job, my co-driver. He did a really good job of hanging with some of the top guys in our class, and almost held the leader off for the end of race 2. And he got through. We got past with some traffic, out of class traffic, got in the middle of it. And then race 1, we were on pace for a podium, and we got a 10-second post-race penalty for a slower class car deciding that they were going to turn in and take themselves out across our nose. So, it's racing. Shit happens. But that 10-second penalty was just a little bit more of a deficit we could climb out of for race 1. But considering that was the bad race, still 4th place is great, and we're stoked with that. And for race 2, I qualified, and we were P3 overall, which was pretty great, and on pace with all the pro guys, and I'm pretty proud of that. So the guys are doing a really good job in the car and making it easy.
That's awesome. Where does that put y'all in the championship contention? Because y'all are headed to Italy soon.
Yeah, we go to Italy in November for the World Finals, and we're currently 3rd. First place is pretty much locked up for those guys. They've done a really great job. In the 69 cars, Glenn McGee and Anthony McIntosh.
69. Nice.
Yeah, 69, right?
Nice.
If you know Tony, then it's on par. But yeah, so I think they need 2 points, and they'll have the championship.
So they pretty much just have to start.
Yeah, they could get a pole and then start, and then as long as they're top 10, they'll be all right. But they still have to start. We saw a car last year that didn't make the grid. They literally lost the championship. The alternator went out right before race 2, and they lost the championship. We're right there on pit lane before the race. So it's racing; anything can happen. So there's a chance, right? And then we're 10 points back from 2nd, so that's definitely obtainable. We don't have the same point spread that they have in Pat's series. A win is 15, and it's 12, 10, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. So I think you guys have bigger points gaps, right? A win's 250 or something.
Yeah, I think a win's 350.
Damn.
And I can't remember the others, but it's it's big points. Yeah, we're at like,
It's a big difference.
I want to say like 1,800 points or something.
Holy smokes!
That is like is where we're at in the season now. So it's crazy.
We won't even ever have career points near that.
Yeah.
So no, things have been really good, man. Wesley's killing it. The team we're with, PPM, they're doing an awesome job. Like Brandon Godovic and his team are fantastic to work with, and they're so great that we actually were able to bring our guys from Kingpin over, and we staff a portion of the team, and we've got Sebastian, Matt, and Hunter, and all our guys over there too. So like, it's kind of a home away from home. They've built a really great environment, and we've been able to kind of plug and play with our people, which is really, really cool. So things are good.
That's awesome. So it gives you some familiarity with who you're working with.
Yeah.
So that's the comfort level's higher. That's good that they were able to integrate that in. Okay, so I want to talk about this penalty because so Wesley was on the inside of the turn. So did he have the turn? I mean, what is considered having the turn in Lambeau?
Well, it seems like in IMSA as a whole, no one really ever has a turn. And if there's, this isn't a criticism. This is just my observation. If there's enough space to put a car, there's enough space to put a car. And if both cars can get through somewhat cleanly, then nothing is assessed. But if somebody, if the car that is overtaking has any impact on the slower car, then they seem to always go with the slower car. And, we've seen that like this particular car, they moved us like he'd run Wesley all the way to the grass on the exit. Like they'd be side by side all the way through the turn, and he just wouldn't leave him any room. So eventually, after 2 times of being, with contact and being pushed out into the grass and then going and catching him again, it's like we got to stick the move. So this particular driver is pretty notorious for not using his mirrors. He ran me last year at a test. This guy took me, we were going down the front straight at VIR, and where it dog legs right before start finish. He ran me into the grass between the track and the guardrail right at that kink. And I didn't even know there was enough grass to put a car in there.
Well, you found out.
I did. Yeah. And the car was in one piece. So that was exciting. But, I guess he's got a reputation for just take him off the car. Honestly, give yourself the mile an hour and just remove him because he doesn't use them. But yeah, so it's a 10-second penalty for that is what they decided, which is a new penalty. Before they added that, before it was no penalty, a drive-through, or like a 40-second post-race penalty. And now they've added a 10-second post-race penalty, which is what we received. And they also added a stop and hold for 60 seconds. So I think somebody got that in qualifying. I think the 24 car ended up with that, which is there's some notable names in that. But yeah.
And then Pat, because I know you've had, I guess people say NASCAR term rubbing is racing, but I know you've had some issues in your series. Which are you in pilot?
VP challenge.
Yeah. So I know you've had a few races that are frustrating because you've been in contention for podiums and you get hit. How has VP handled that, or have they not handled that? I mean, I don't want to be no criticism here, but just how does that work in that series?
I'll give the criticism. The officiating has been extremely inconsistent in our series, and we like in Canada. Unfortunately, it hadn't been so much in the GT4 stuff. It's been more in the P3 class. But in Canada, we had a guy line up in the wrong lane on race 1 in Canada. They gave him a warning. And then another guy did the same thing in race 2, and they gave him a drive-through penalty during the race. And it's like, so, what justifies which, who gets what? I had contact at the apex of turn 5 at VIR. And my left front wheel left a donut on the guy's door, and they gave this guy no penalty, which I left him plenty of room in turn 4 and raced him clean. And then maybe he just thought that I wasn't there. But Bo Barfield has a great quote that he always asks, and he says, when there's an incident like this, he says, "Did you know that car was there?" And before you answer, just so you know, saying no is a lot worse than saying yes, right? So if you knew he was there, why didn't you leave the room? And if you didn't know why he was there, why aren't you using your mirrors? But they gave that guy no penalty. And, you look at the rule book and it says if a car is reasonably established alongside of another car, you have to leave racing room to it. And I would say with my front nose being at your mirror, that's pretty much reasonably established at the apex of a corner. So it's just been a little frustrating with that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what's even more frustrating. And I'll go right into this. We've been taken out twice by guys that have a lot of money. And twice now, neither one of those people have come down to talk to us face to face. And we're a team that's all volunteers. Everybody's paying to be there. We're doing this at the bare minimum, and we're racing up front in a car that's 6 years old compared to their vehicles. And for them not to say anything to us is just, that makes me more mad than the actual contact does. Like, be a man, come down and talk to us, and let's sort it out. But this whole gentleman driver shit nowadays, where they think that just because they have money, they don't need to talk to anybody, and it's just racing, and we're going to move on and do it again next week. That's horseshit, and that stuff's got to stop. And I mean, I don't think it will stop because the gentleman stuff's going to keep growing, but it's frustrating.
Yeah, I know that's one thing. Like, and again, just for clarity on everything, I'm not a racer by any means. I've been doing track days now for a decade and a half, but I've always, me personally, if I make a mistake on track, I go find the person to say, "Hey, my bad. Here's what I was doing. I'm sorry that it happened. Next time, here's what I'm doing, so you know better of what I'm doing. And hey, let me know if you're doing something different so that I know." Now that's on a track day perspective. And I learned that. I mean, that was when I was doing most of my, the track day, the weekend stuff was with Chin. I remember Mark Hicks, for good and bad with him. I mean, Mark's a great guy, but he was like, "Hey, listen, if something happens, you need to go talk to the guy." Because they'll come to, I mean, at least as an organizer as well, I make sure if someone comes and tells me something, I was like, "Well, you need to talk to them first, and then I'll come talk to them as well." That's part of this, part of the sport should be, it's a mutual respect on track, right? And I think that hits well home with what you're saying is like, yeah, we're all out here, and we're all putting, life and limb on the line to do the sport that we love. If something happens, you pass in a wall, or if I put you in an unsafe situation, we need to talk about it and make sure it doesn't happen again. We all want, the cars can be fixed, but someone this weekend hit in turn 3 and he's a new acquaintance, but I was like, "Hey man, we can fix the car. It's a lot easier to fix a car than a human."
Yeah.
So, let's be respectful of each other.
That and just doing the right thing, man. Like,
decent
reputations are important, and being a decent, like being a good person is important to me, and like doing the right thing and treating people the way I want to be treated and being raised that way too. Like, it's just, I can't imagine going to, like, I had contact with a teammate this weekend, and like I was standing there at the end of the race, and it was like the car snapped. It was my fault. There was no big deal. Like, that didn't change the outcome of the race, but like, that's like, it's shitty. Like, if your car touches another car, even like if you hang somebody out to dry, even like I'll try to like hey, like, I'm sorry, like, sorry it went down like that, or like this how maybe it could have been different, or this is what I experienced. But like, just being a good person is like, it seems like it's forgotten about. And it's one thing, like, racing is racing, and like contact is not right, but shit happens, and like how you handle that off the track, I think, is a big testament to the character of a human being.
Yeah, we went to, when we were at Lime Rock, we had that big wreck in turn 1 on race 1 at Lime Rock, and there wasn't a good video to show what actually happened, but we got nudged from behind and had the car did a big lane change, and I ended up hitting Tim Probert next to me, and he hit Sebastian Carrazzo, and those two cars got destroyed. I mean, Probert had to go home. But as soon as we got back to the paddock, I went straight to Carrazzo and made sure he was okay. And, I told him, "Look, man, we got nudged. Like, there's nothing I could do." And then I couldn't find Tim. And so I went to his team. I got his phone number and I texted Tim and I was like, look, man, I tried to find you in the paddock. Couldn't find you. Wanted to tell you what happened. And, we cleared the air. He said, yeah. He said his team told him that we got hit, that it wasn't, our doing. It's just one of those crappy situations that we were put in. But, the point of it is like, just have respect for each other. Jesus Christ. Like what, when you take somebody out, end up on the podium, and then you're paddocked across from them and you don't even come and say anything to them, that's ridiculous, man. Like, and I think it just goes back to this like social media keyboard warrior type of society that we have now. And it's like, they feel like they can just do whatever they want and walk away from it. And that's fine, dude. Like, if that's the way we're going to do it, hell, I can drive that way too. And that's the way we'll play it for the rest of the time. So it's just, it sucks. But
so moral of the story, be a decent human, people.
Yeah. The golden rule, man. The golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, I know that's frustrating, but yeah, I mean, that's always been like a big thing that like when people are in the sport, I'm like, hey, just if you make a mistake, make a mistake. It's fine. Learn from it, apologize for it, and move on.
Yeah,
I think that
something's going to happen. Like, why carry the beef from one race to the next? Like, I don't want to put a target on my back. And there's plenty of people that don't seem to mind that. Like, they welcome it, or like they probably already feel that they have it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe a lifetime of just never apologizing for anyone or admitting that there's might have been a mistake. But well, I don't understand. Like, why would you take something from VIR and carry it over to Road Atlanta and be like, all right, we're already starting the race with enemies. This is going to go well.
Yeah.
I think to your point, Pat, is the gentleman racer. Back when a lot of this stuff started, back in the 50s and 60s, that everyone was a gentleman racer because there was no professional racing. That way back then, SCCA and a lot of these guys started way back in the day. Now it's very money driven, and yes, they're gentleman racers, but are they treating it like how they treat their business? Are they ruthless in it, or are they ego driven? Whatever. It's hard for people to break that sometimes. So that's frustrating. I understand that.
Yeah,
it's frustrating. So kind of we got to move on to the next topic. I think we hit that one pretty good. So I think kind of the next thing is let's talk about maybe prep for a track day. So again, coming from the HPD high performance driving track day kind of background, a lot of people start everywhere. Some people come with a bone stock car, be it a Chevy Malibu that you just bought and you got gifted a track day, or you're wanting to get into the sport, or you have a car you've been modifying, or you're in a full race car. There's different levels of prep. And we were in our kind of pre-meeting here. Pat was like, I don't know, I just get in the car and drive. That's good.
Car go fast.
Car go fast, Pat go faster. It's very caveman of you, Pat, but I appreciate it. So, I mean, really, for the stock car, because, I started in just a stock, I started in a BMW M3. So, I mean, it's, I guess, at least decently prepped. So we'll have a preference of that. You're in a sports car of some, call it a Miata, whatever. But really, on a stock car, the first thing to do is, first off, get registered. Get registered for your day. You need a helmet. I'd like for everyone to be in a head and neck restraint. Pat, some people do, some people don't, but they're about the same cost as a helmet now. So say $600, you get a helmet and you get a head and neck restraint that works with your car.
Hey, I'm
and then really most, but you don't own one.
Well, not for a 3-point belt, no.
Not for a 3-point belt, but that's okay. But really, all you have to do for your everyday.
There's not much more to scramble up here.
But really, for your, and Tyler, y'all both do, or you used to do right seat coaching. We're on week 3 of Pat not doing right seat coaching, so that's still a record. We're going to keep count of this because it's going to happen eventually. But we'll see. But really, if you have just a stock car, really just make sure you have good brake fluid and that your tires aren't bald. And really, other than that, you kind of go from there. Where it gets interesting to me, and Tyler, you can maybe chime in on this, is when you start modifying the car. So you put aftermarket brakes on, or maybe an aftermarket pad, and then maybe most people do the most people modify first on usually brake pads, and then usually they add power first, which I don't suggest. I suggest brakes and suspension first. And safety. If you're really going to start tracking a car, it does make sense to at least put a half cage in your car. There's so many now that just bolt into stock locations. You can take it out, if you sell the car or whatever. But really, just some general protection is good. But really, the suspension and brakes are your biggest, I think, performance gain without adding power. Most new cars nowadays, and y'all have done Lotus and Porsche and Ferrari drives, and these stock cars now are insane.
Oh, they're incredible. Like, you don't need to do much. I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, putting, like you said, fluid in the car, having a brake pad that's going to last all day or all weekend, and then if you can put an alignment on it, like, those are the two things I would do.
Yeah. That was kind of the part of the suspension thing. Now, when I mean suspension, just go get a good alignment. You can add a little bit more camber to the car if needed, but really that'll help your tires last. I mean, it's part of your consumables. If you get a good brake pad and a good tire and a good alignment, you're going to be able to get through that weekend and maybe another one before having to do anything with the car. The biggest thing is go to a shop that knows your car in terms of, like, if you're in a Porsche, find a Porsche shop. If you're in a Ferrari, go to the dealer. A lot of the dealers will do track prep.
Really?
They'll do an inspection. They'll put the alignment on for you. Shoot, the new Camaros and Corvettes in the book have track alignment specs the dealers will do for you.
That's
and
cool.
A lot of them come with, like, the extra brake cooling, or I think the Corvettes used to come with, like, an extra brake ring that you'd put on to help dissipate more heat. I mean, like, the manufacturers know what you're doing with these cars. And so they're trying to accommodate, to give you at least what they think will help the car, which I think is really neat.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's usually a motorsport setup, that you can slap on it from the factory.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, go find Kieran in Gran Turismo East.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, man, GTE baby. That's very.
If you're in the Atlanta area and you're looking for a good shop that's consistent, reliable, and I think they're priced pretty well, actually.
Yeah, they are.
Sure.
They're great. Gran Turismo East. They're right by Peachtree DeKalb Airport in Chambly.
Nope.
Chambly.
2 miles away.
Yep. Tyler is in that area, so he knows that place really well, and I think you've been using him for years too.
My dad and Harris Connor, who started it, were best friends. So
there you go. Well, maybe they'll sponsor the podcast.
Yeah. Hey, Kieran. By the way,
we know you're not watching this, but we'd love to have you come on.
Oh, I'm sending it to him now. I'll be sending
everyone for an hour. That would be great.
That would be interesting. We probably need 2 hours, I'd imagine. Probably a lot more bourbon. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. No matter what level your car is, I guess the point is no matter what level you're at. So I mean, if you're in a stock car, a modified car, or in a full race car, get a pre-track inspection done. Make sure you're not leaking anything, because the last thing you want to do, and this goes back to just the gentlemanly thing of it, make sure you're not leaking coolant or oil on the track, because it ruins a freaking day. Someone's on the best lap of their life, they hit coolant, and they end up in the gravel, or they end up spinning. It is, and then you feel like crap when you're the guy who caused it. And I've been there. I've run out of gas on track multiple times, and I apologize to everybody, because you feel like crap.
Once a weekend.
I've done it twice in 15 years.
Every time you go to the track, you run out of gas.
Not true, but
they've got this. There's this little gauge in there that you can watch.
Yeah, but what happens in my car, at least, it doesn't get fuel starve. But again, as y'all know, the lighter you are, the faster you go. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is I'm on, this burner, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get it, do my fastest lap. I'm going to go for another one. And then as I go up the hill in one, and it just dies. It's happened twice, but my best laps have always been when I've run out of gas. So I will probably continue to do it. But, I apologize that I'm.
I will continue. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to change.
Yeah, not going to change my ways.
Not going to change. Sorry, it's a thing. But
that damn 29.
Oh, dude, so I bought. Okay, so I'm gonna give a okay.
That conversation.
Race car. So if you're in a fully prepped car, so I'm in a fully prepped E92 M3. It's on slicks. The only thing stock still is basically the bottom end of the motor, and it's a great car and I love it. But it takes a lot of prep. So once you get up to like when you're dedicated race car, the biggest thing I can suggest is get a pre and a post track inspection by the shop you're using, because you'll find little things that will save you a ton of money in the back end, small leaks, stuff like that, because a small leak turns into a big issue. You lose a motor, you lose a trans, something like that. But Tyler, you're going to be proud of me, maybe proud of me. I didn't buy a new set of stickers, but I have a 2-lap set of scrubs that we're going to use, I think, for under the lights. So I think the 29 could possibly happen. We did a 30. I did a 31 last week, and it was hot as all get out. I think ambient was like 92 or something. So it's there.
You think you'll get a lap at under the lights though? Car count
in the afternoon. So under the lights, if y'all aren't aware, there's a club local here, driving club, and part of it when we started it was the big event was to do under the lights. So the Tuesday after Petite, we run from I think 2 p.m. till 10 o'clock at night. So and it's busy. I mean, in the evening there'll be 200 cars there. It will be busy. It's the busiest day of the year for that club. But I think in the afternoon, if we do like a 5 o'clock once the sun starts kind of going down, I think we'll be able to do it. We'll see. If not, we'll do the November date.
How fast is that? How fast is that car gone?
It's done a 30. It's done a mid 30.6.
Okay.
With me in the car. Tyler, I don't know. I can't remember the last time you drove it. You might have done a 30 as well.
I think I did a 30 something. Yeah, that was like a year and a half ago. I think you've done some stuff since then. Yeah,
and then I think Seth did a 31, but he hasn't driven the car with the new diff in it. So I think you drove with the new differential.
I think so.
So I think that was the locking of that was a big help. So that's the other thing, guys. When y'all get into when you start really modifying a car, small things make a huge difference. Like we changed spring rates and it just balances the car out better. And one thing I'm not good at, and this is another thing. So let's go into if you're the biggest mistakes as a newbie to the track, and then the guys who've been doing this forever, what's still your biggest, what are you still messing up? And I want to hear y'all's perspective. I've talked a lot here, but I want to hear y'all's perspective. Guy who's not his first track day, but maybe he's just soloed, so he's still new to the track. What is the biggest thing you see as a coach that's the easiest to fix, that gets people the most out of what they're doing?
Good.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I mean, there's a couple of things, and a lot of them are on the mental side. The easiest one is just looking up. Sometimes, just slowing down a little bit. It's like driving at 70%, so you can really observe what's going on and what you're doing with the car. And if you're constantly at 100%, then it's hard for you to process the information and learn. You're just out there and you're so present, you're so in the moment that you don't really absorb what's going on.
Kind of like red mist.
Essentially, yeah. And if you don't if you don't have an in-car camera system, then you can't go back and reflect on what happened. And that's where a lot of the learning happens. So if you're in you're in a stock car that's got the brakes and the alignment done, then if you're, sometimes slowing down to 70, 80% and just being truly present and being able to observe yourself while doing it is the way to learn more quicker. And it helps accelerate the learning curve overall. And that'd be for the new guy, someone that just soloed and then once you're starting to learn, and then you got to hire Pat Wilmot, and Pat Wilmot will come ride with you. And when you hire Pat, you put a data system in the car and you get, Patrick to come out and coach you and show you where the rest of the time is. But I think that's the it's like almost like trying too hard. Like just let it come organically, let it flow, let it be natural. Um, Being present is obviously important, and then like setting the appropriate amount of time where it's if you're constantly scrambling the entire day and trying to do you're trying to swap tires and do all this stuff by yourself, that's a lot of work. And I notice especially on the upper end where it really takes away from somebody's ability to drive the car. If you're exhausted from being a one-man band, which is understandable, there's nothing wrong with sitting out for a session and maybe getting some more time in at a happy hour. I think managing yourself is important. But I think a lot of it's on the mental side, especially, early on, and giving yourself space to grow and learn and going at your own pace.
Yeah, I think we kind of covered this a little bit on the very first podcast that I did with you guys. But talking about like the more advanced guys is almost the same thing with the newer guys. It's vision and braking, but it's just how it's done that's a little bit different. When you're more advanced, you're looking at basically how you're releasing the brakes, I feel like. And then when you're newer, you're working on how to get on the brakes harder, because a lot of people aren't using the brakes enough when they first start to do track days. And with the vision, everybody's eyes are low for the most part. And when you first start, and then also when, I say this a lot, it's like, all right, eyes up. But what I really mean when I say eyes up is like, yes, look farther ahead, but turn your head and keep your head on a swivel looking through the corner, because people get locked in on this, tunnel vision kind of right out the front of the windshield. And a perfect example is the right seat accident that we just talked about in the last one that we just had. That's exactly what happened. It was just, we were locked in here instead of looking up where we should have been going. So vision and braking are the two biggest things I think that you can find the most time right out of the gate.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Just like, because I remember, in the classroom sessions you do as when you start doing this sport, it's a lot of first off, you got to learn the track. That can be difficult for a lot of people, is just learning left, right, where to look. So one thing I know they do a lot of is like corner, like where are the corner workers? Because you have to be able to know, kind of where they are, because they're the ones throwing the flags if something's happening in front of you and stuff. But vision, so like one spot for me that I always have to remind myself to look ahead is like coming down the S's.
Mm-hmm.
As you leave, as you go, you jump 3, you come around 4, the track goes away. I mean, you can't see it. And then as you're going downhill, you got to look up to see 5. So I have to really make myself, look up and not just focus on, 20 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
So I think that happens to a lot of people. And then braking, I agree with 1,000,000%, because I'm still learning how to brake my car, especially like into 10A, and that's also part of knowing the track, where the track goes up and down and is cambered. You can do a lot more with your car if you know what the track's doing. And I wish more organizations would do track walks.
Absolutely.
I would love to see the DE guys, and even the club races. I know like at the pro level, y'all there's track walks every weekend before, pretty much it's open after the track goes cold. But I really do wish that the organizers of the DE stuff, track days, would organize track walks, because it's very different when you're outside of the car and you can actually like be at ground level outside of it to see what it's doing. Because like, again, we're going to use Road Atlanta as just because it's our local track. Like turn 1 has a lot of camber in it, and it's very steep. It doesn't look that steep, when you're in the car, but when you're walking it, you're like, man, it's a big uphill. You can carry a lot more speed there. And also like 6, when you're in the car, you don't know how much camber's there, and then you walk it, and you're, not like NASCAR, but you're at an angle, which I think would be a big help to a lot of people.
Yeah, if you stand on the bottom, like the apex of 6, like you can't see over the outside of the track. There's that much elevation and camber through there. Like that was one of the most amazing things to me when I first walked that track. years and years ago was just how much camber is there in that turn particularly. But that's a good idea. I wonder what it would take for DE groups to get the accessibility to go walk the track for an hour. Like, I don't think there'd be an issue.
To be honest, I think they just don't ask, because I know we've done it when me and you were doing driving club and we were running it. I mean, we just asked and we were able to do a few of them.
Yeah.
Even outside of our day, we could, they can be reasonable, but I just don't think a lot of people ask. But
well, they get their paper map when they get there, so that should be enough.
Oh yeah, paper map with no elevation. and you can tell someone, Road Atlanta has 120 feet of elevation change from top of, I guess, what is that? The bridge coming out of 10B to the bottom of 1.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a big change in elevation, and then from turn 1. You go bottom of turn 1, you peak at 3, and you go back downhill in the S's.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very undulate. I mean, same thing at VIR has a lot of elevation change. Any of the natural terrain tracks, you really need to walk them. A place like CMP or Sebring, you're talking 2 feet of elevation change. These tracks are pretty flat. But that's actually more
7. Yeah, there's nothing.
I think there's maybe like 2 feet, but to me, Sebring is a tough track to learn because you don't have the elevation change, because you kind of can forget where all the turns are. I mean, there's 17 of them, and I mean, it's flat. It's a hard one to learn.
Yeah, multiple look the same too at Sebring. Like 10
Correct.
and 13 are like, they look like almost the same. But it's usually a gear difference there. I made that mistake one time. The first time I was there, I went into 13 thinking it was 10, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
it's tight on the exit there.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think for as a more advanced HPD driver, I think vision is still challenging at some points. And I think the braking still flows from being new to when you're advanced, because it's you can do so much more with the brakes than you think. And the throttle. I mean, you really changing the direction of the car with throttle, I think, is something that's definitely a more advanced technique. And I think people have a hard time with it because so many people run with all the nannies still on from the factory. And, they do a good job. Like the Porsche system is incredible, but you're still leaving time on the table because it is intervening more than, it probably needs. You have a lot more grip than I think a lot of people, especially if you've upgraded your tire.
Yeah.
I mean, the BMW, you pretty much have to run everything off, right?
The new ones, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with our M4, we have it. Granted, it's the older one. I run it in the MDM mode, and it kind of, like, for us, I found that if my slip angle is anywhere past what the MDM mode is, I'm screwing up somehow. So, and fortunately in the GT4 car, it's not super intrusive. It just, it'll slow you down just for a split second. But I've tried it both ways, and running it off, like, I just get when it's completely off, the slides are way bigger. And but I run MDM, and now in the new G82 car, like, there's a bunch of different settings for it now. It's not just 3 settings, so it's like a GT3 car. So you can completely dial that. But yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the big things is that people don't understand using the brakes as a tool, not just to slow down, but also to put weight where you need it to add grip. And same thing with the throttle. Sometimes you need to add throttle to add grip to the rear of the car, which can be counterintuitive to a lot of people. Like, you look at like turn 1 at Barber is a good corner to talk about that, because as you crest the hill and come down into 1, people aren't going back to throttle, and the car, a lot of times, and the car is usually loose there as you're coming down the hill. And if you just squeeze in a little power, it sets the weight on the rear, and all of a sudden the car has grip again. And it just kind of, because you're still turning, people think about they think about the grip circle, and it's like, well, I can't add throttle because I have this much steering angle and that kind of stuff. And there's an overlap there that you need to understand as well. So,
Yeah, for reference, turn one at Barber is a downhill left-hander. Kind of,
yeah,
it's
very
not a
downhill too.
That's
downhill
the point.
left-hander.
My favorite phrase for that is, I mean, wherever the weight is where the grip is. So you have to be particular, to be definitive or intentional with where you're trying to put the weight to provide the grip. And, I mean, it all correlates from there, but turn one's a really great example of that over there at Barber.
Yeah.
So, all right, I think we've covered that. I want to talk. Oh, one more topic. Drive intentionally. When you're on a racetrack, there's different levels of experience. But when you're on there, drive intentionally. Don't puddle around. Even on your warm-up lap, don't puddle. Or piddle, I guess is the better word. But piddle, puddle.
Oh, you're talking about things that people at track days could improve on, or the old guy, the veteran making mistakes, right?
Yeah, so just drive with intention. Don't be the guy who's online. If you're having a car issue, get offline. Especially a lot of people, at least at Road Atlanta, they come out of 7, and that's usually when the car has an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Get over, get out of the way. Or if you're online, drive with intention. Don't just and watch your mirrors, because someone's going to be coming up your rear end, and you're much better off giving the point ahead of time and not pissing that person off than or just be out of the way and people will know. Just drive with intention. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I'd say that on the cool down lap too. Like, don't
correct. That's where I was going next.
35 miles an hour. That was one thing this weekend that was actually refreshing. Most of the guys were at the Jay Zilla event. Most of them were very heads up, and even we were trying to do tire pressures and stuff, and so. Yeah. I'm still trying to come into the pits hot in the race car, and most everybody was pointing us by on the cool down. So that was pretty cool. So I could still, awesome. Haul ass around. But a lot of guys are just like, oh, it's cool down. Let me do 30 miles an hour around this place.
Yeah, don't turn off. Don't just turn your brain off on the cool down lap. Still be heads up, because shit can happen on your cool down lap too.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing is when you're going in a pit, don't go 20 miles an hour. The pit lane doesn't start until you at least at Road Atlanta, you come over the bridge, you should still be going at a pretty good clip. You can see where the brake marks are at the bottom of the hill. That's where you should really start slowing down. Come in with intention.
Yeah.
And slow down safely. Because people are trying to get tire pressures or trying to, you're trying to get an optimal reading on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think people don't understand, newer guys don't understand how much the tire will lose pressure on that cool down lap if you're not coming in hot, right? They piddle back to the paddock, and the tires lost a couple pounds probably from what it actually was, and so you need to come in hot, and if you can get the pressures on pit lane, because it'll get a much more accurate reading.
Which that leads me into kind of the next thing with, and Tyler, you touched on this, the one-man show. This sport is expensive. There's no doubt about it. This sport, if you started or you've been in it forever, it just gets more expensive. The one thing that I have found that's been a huge help, one is coaching. So hire a coach, get someone who's doing this all the time for their living. It's worth the $1,200 to $2,000 for the day. You're going to get so much more out of that than a lot of people realize, because you take that knowledge with you no matter what you're driving or where you're driving, because if you can use it at Road Atlanta, you can use it at Barber, you can use it at Watkins, you can use it wherever, because you're learning from someone. This is all they do. So I think that's a big thing for the newbie and even the advanced guy. Don't think you're better. Don't think that you know more than someone else does, because I promise you someone out there knows more than you do. And take that and pay them for their knowledge. And that's a whole other thing with right seat novice instructing, but that's for another day and another topic. But really, when you're in this sport, use someone else's knowledge, pay them, use it, and you'll get a lot further than you think you probably ever could. There's a great example. I know Tyler's has a group that he's been working with, and some of these guys are gaining 6-7 10 seconds, at every track they're going to, just because of the knowledge that, they've absorbed from Tyler and able to implement. That value goes way beyond just the single day or the 2 days that you have with that person. The other thing that I found very good is having track support. And that touched on your point there, Pat, is if you're able to come off pit, you don't have to get out of your car, and someone's right there to just do tire pressures, it saves a ton. And then also not have, someone else is looking over the car between sessions, you're not having to.
Yeah.
I know, Tyler, you have a client that likes to do all his own work, and I know it's I don't want to say impeded, but it's impeded some of his progress.
It's tough, man. It's tough to do it all. You're on your own, and if you're driving the car, you're driving the rig, you're working on the car, and you're fetching fuel and tires, and you're doing it's a lot. And there's only so much bandwidth up here. Like eventually something's got to give, and if you get the car to pit lane on time, then it's hard to get focused. So having track support is awesome.
Yeah, think about how much just driving in a track day takes out of you during the course of the day, and then you add hauling the car, doing everything to the car on top of that, dude, you're spent. So having one person, paying $300-$400 for the day to watch over everything, dude, that's a game changer right there. So it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in the last year or so, I've seen a lot of stories about people that are doing, the one-man band, and then on their drive home, they fall asleep towing the rig, and they end up, destroying the car, destroying the tow vehicle, almost killing themselves. I mean, there's a lot in there. Yes, it makes your expenses higher, and it's not for everybody. There's plenty of guys who just want to drive to the track, do their thing, and go home. But you lose a tire. Someone lost a brake caliper this weekend, so I don't think he was able to drive home. So then he had to tow the car, get the part. It kind of ruins your day and your weekend if you can't even get home. At least if you have someone there helping you, but you're towing yourself, at least you can get home. And for reference, if especially like for me at least, when we go to Sebring and stuff, I used to haul the car. I'm not doing it anymore. It's better to have someone else do it. It's expensive, but it just makes the whole weekend better. You're more relaxed. You're more focused on what you're trying to do. You and your coach can really focus. You're not worried about swapping wheels or changing brake pads or adding coolant. You're just focused on driving. So if you're trying to get the most out of your weekend, I think that's the way to do it, is to have support. At least have a crew guy. And there's plenty of, Lord, you go to any Chin weekend at Road Atlanta or Sebring or any of these, there's probably 6 teams or 6 shops that are probably there anyway, and you can hire them just to look over the car while you're there.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge help. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. The next thing I want to talk about, and we'll get a little more lighthearted here, is let's talk about rental cars.
Fastest car in the world, baby.
So I made an observation this weekend that there were several rental cars. We won't use names, but there were several rental cars on track, and it kind of made me laugh a little bit. But I think y'all two probably have more experience with renting cars when you're out and about, and then also maybe clients renting cars or even friends renting cars and using them on track. How does that typically work out?
Well, it depends on how big the car is usually or what kind of car it is. But a lot of times the brakes are completely toast within, half a day. Tires are usually shot, but as long as you keep it out of the wall, I mean, it works out.
For reference here, when we're talking about rent, we're talking about like you going to Budget or to Hertz.
Yeah.
And renting a vehicle and then taking it on a racetrack.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it for like a track tour, like, driving a slow lap. But this is the first time I've really seen people have like a Hertz rental car on the racetrack. Now, more reference, Hertz used to rent, and they still do, Mustangs. It's the GC350H. Now, back in the 60s and 70s, I mean, people literally would rent the car and take them to the race weekend and then return them. That was kind of part of I guess they kind of knew what was happening. But I don't think that's the intention of these rental cars, but people still do it.
Yeah. I think back then it was mainly drag racing that they used to do with the Hertz rentals. But yeah, I mean, Ford and Hertz had the whole Rent a Racer campaign for a long time. And funny enough, my dad had two of them back in the day, and I wish we still had those. But that's another story. But yeah, man, after a while, they had to stop doing that. They're like, people were wrecking the hell out of these Shelbys, and they started out as all 4-speed cars, and then they realized that a lot of people couldn't drive 4-speed, so they started making automatics as well to let people start taking those out. And but yeah, it turned into kind of a shit show with cars getting wrecked. But they still do it today, and still got their H cars, their Shelby H cars. So
sounds like a nice lost leader.
Yeah. I've never taken one on track. I don't think I've ever taken an actual like rental car on track. I don't believe I have. There's been plenty of like bump drafting and stuff on the streets, and like ripping the handbrakes and everything like that. I've got some great doing that stuff. And
so you're buying the rental car insurance.
I actually never have. I never have, which is probably really dumb. And we've gotten away with most of it. The bump drafting, usually if you do it right, like you only get a couple scratches on the bumper and you can kind of wipe away most of it. I think
we do not condone any of this behavior.
Don't buy a rental car for your personal vehicle. Just good rule of thumb.
I'd stay away.
Do not buy an old fleet. If it's been in a fleet, do not buy it.
Yeah. The fastest car in the world is a rental car, so don't buy a rental car. We had a Camaro, a Hertz edition Camaro SS last year, and we went to Wesley had never been to Laguna, and we were racing there last year for Lambo, and he needed to see the track, so we flew to California, grabbed the Camaro, and we put that sucker on track and pulled the OBD2 thing out, and I drove 3 laps to show him the track. We came in, switched, and I think we maybe we completed probably 2 or 3 laps, and he's like, hey, the brakes are getting soft. It's like, okay, let's go to pit lane. He's like, nah, we'll do one more. It'll be okay. We get to the corkscrew, brakes go to the floor, and he just he sailed it off. It's like, don't look at the wall, don't look at the wall, don't look at the wall. And he sails it off over the gravel sideways, barely misses the wall, jumps the shit out of it, and think we lost some of the underbody, but ultimately, we let it sit for 6 hours, and the brakes came back enough to drive it back. So if you put a rental car on track, know the brakes are going to go out. Know that they are not going to last. The tires are going to be whatever not Nankings are good actually, but whatever Chinese crap is on there is not going to be worth a damn.
Well, that's when you show up back to Hertz and you're like, this piece of shit. I was driving it down the highway and the brakes went to the floor. I don't know what's wrong with it. I want some money back.
Yeah, I'm going to need a refund on my track day, please.
Yeah. And they pull the GPS, and why were you going in circles for 2 hours? Don't worry about it. Just driving around the track.
But yeah, so it's dangerous. So you can be smart and pay attention and be aware and expect the brakes to fail and watch your tire pressures. And I think if you're going to learn a track and just kind of cruise, it can be okay. But if you're going out there to drive, probably not the best idea. Go get a rental from Corsa Crew or somebody reputable.
Well, the best game, Corsa Crew is great. Yeah. The best game to play is the parking game. There's 2 ways you can do it. One, if it's a front wheel drive car, you get to your hotel parking lot and pull the handbrake up, and then drive the car to your parking space with the handbrake up. Or this one's even better. This is a fun one. You get a lot of speed as you enter the parking lot and throw it in park and try and get the car to the parking space with it in park. That's a fun one too. I've done that a few times.
That's an awful noise. That is just a horrific noise the car makes.
Yeah. We've done it on the highway at 80, just thrown one in park on the highway, and it's terrible. But
Trevor, one of our friends did that to us at Lime Rock, in 2020, and he did it to me. And the car, you're on those 2-lane roads going to Lime Rock, and he threw it in park, and we're doing 70, And then the car, you couldn't put it back in drive without coming to a complete stop. So we just stop on the road. Like, this is so sketchy. But
again, we do not condone any of this behavior. This is all hypothetical.
I might condone it a little bit.
You're not breaking any rules or any laws. There's no speeding. There's no. It's just it's a little hard on the car.
Tearing the car up.
Reckless driving, though, that might be in there.
Yeah, maybe that's always up for interpretation, to my understanding.
Yeah. So rule of thumb here: do not buy a rental car as your personal car because it's probably been destroyed by
one of us.
However many racers.
If it's near a racetrack, don't.
But yeah, if you're within like a 50-mile radius of a racetrack, I would not buy a rental car. Well, good. Jeez.
There's another podcast that's got a really good show on that. Who was it that was like they got some. It was dinner with racers. Ryan.
Oh,
it was one of the young. It was Bobby Unser, I think.
Yeah, it was Bobby.
Dude, he got banned. I can't remember what the total bill was racked up to. But when Hertz started having their troubles during the COVID stuff in 2020, the CEO sent Unser a letter and said, it's come to our attention that you have like $250,000 worth of damages and stuff to rental cars over the years, and we want it. And like it turned into a whole court case and stuff apparently. But back in the day, you could just destroy those cars and it didn't really matter. But yeah, he got banned for life.
Wow.
So I'm sure that thing's framed in his office.
It's got to be so awesome.
It's like being 23 and not being able to make a rental car anymore, except you're probably however old Bobby is. You can't do it anymore. That's crazy.
Those rules came from somewhere.
Oh, Lord. So this is fun. Good another episode, guys. Again, coming up, I'm going to try to get this posted sooner than Friday. But coming up, HSR. So if you're around Road Atlanta this weekend, or actually probably starting Thursday, I think they start.
We test on Thursday. Yeah.
Test on Thursday, which Tyler put me on your list so I can get in.
Okay.
But I'll be able to get in. I'm not worried about it. But I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday, some good racing. The weather in Atlanta is starting to turn chilly. I walked out this morning and it was like 56 degrees. It was wonderful. I'm in a sweatshirt. It was fantastic.
Finally.
Hopefully not. We get a thing in Atlanta called False Fall, where for about 2 weeks we'll get this nice cool weather and then it becomes 90 again. Hopefully we're past that because it was hot as stink last week, or 2 weeks ago. So hopefully it's better. But come say hey. We'll be around. Look for the 2 Jägermeister cars. We're probably going to be near those. One's a 944 and one's a 718.
Yep.
Porsches, so both Porsches. And then, Pat, are you going to be around?
I won't. I'll be at Sebring for the SRO weekend, coaching Stephen Clemens.
Nice.
Very good. SRO weekend. So watch. Is that televised, Pat?
It'll be on YouTube, GR86 Cup. So all you got to do is Google that. It should come up. So
I got a question about GR86 before we wrap up. So Matt Farah just did a YouTube on the 86, I guess is what it's a sequential in it, right?
It is.
Yeah, versus the Miata. So he made a pretty bold statement that the 86 is now the answer and not the Miata.
I would say
spec Miata versus the 86.
Yeah, I would say as far as like a race series, I think Toyota is doing it right. You got $12,000 to win every race.
Oh, okay. So there's some money.
Yeah, and they pay down through 8th place currently. So I think 8th place is still getting $3,000 a race.
Wow.
So you're walking away with a lot of money. Whereas, and there's a prize at the end as well for the champion, but also, MX5 has $250K or whatever it is to win, but you got to win the whole championship. Now, a lot of that, what people don't understand with a lot of that stuff is like, they say you go and take whatever money take the money and go wherever you want with it in MX5 Cup, but realistically, a lot of it's like parts credits and stuff like that for the next year. So, but
it's not actual cash.
Yeah, not actual cash. So I mean, the Toyota is a fun car. I still have a soft spot for the MX-5 Cup car just because I spent a lot of time in those. Um, I will say I don't necessarily agree with the sequential stuff because the sedative is 30 grand or something like that. And, instead of the car being 100 grand, it's 125, 130 plus spares and all that stuff. So I still wish there was a 6-speed in them, but it is what it is. I do think it's a good series. It's been run pretty well this year. The racing's been pretty good. It's starting to get a little dirty now as we get farther into the year, but it's spec racing, so that's kind of what you expect.
Gotcha. Is that the new entry point for a lot? I mean, I know a lot of the GT4 cars are like 200, but is that like 150 to 200? I mean, is that kind of the new entry point for any of these spec series?
Yeah, and you look at, I mean, the MX-5 Cup and the Toyota are close to the same, around 130 plus spares, and then you got the new Mustang coming out for the spec Mustang series, which I think the car starts at 145, so you're still kind of.
And it's a 6-speed.
And it's a 6-speed, which is awesome.
It's a 6-speed. We saw it testing. I saw it testing. So unbeknownst to me, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago, before they announced the new GTD. Mustang, they were testing the GT4 car, the GTD, and the Spec Series car at Road Atlanta. And I gotta tell you, that Spec Series car, first off, for whatever you want to tell them, Mustang, they sound great. I mean, they're it's a big American muscle car, but it looked great going around one where I could see it, and then I think that's gonna be. I think Ford, for all that they're doing, I think Ford is. Because of Jim Farley and him is it Farley? Yeah, Farley. I mean, the guy's a racer at heart. I mean, I'm excited for Ford to get into that spec game because I think having the 6-speed, I think it's supposed to be pretty economical. I think it's like 120 for the car, but like you said, if you have to replace the transmission, I think it's the standard transmission out of the street car, or at least the 6-speed out of the street car. So I mean, you do have some economy there. And I'm hoping they run that series well. We have Scott Bartlett, who we all know. He was with Chin Track Days and then with Porsche for a while. I believe his position now is running that motorsport program.
Yep.
So I'm excited to have a familiar face in that. So I'm sure we can get Scott on here and he can probably expand more on what they're doing between the spec car, the GT4, and then the GT3 car coming. I think they're running that next year, the GT3 and the GT4 car.
Yeah, I think the GT3 comes to Le Mans. I don't think they're going to have them for Daytona, if I remember correctly. I think Le Mans is going to be
late next year.
Yeah, that I might be wrong on that, but I think that's what I heard. But they used to have the Mustang Challenge series back in the day, and essentially what that's going to be. There's only 4 races, though, 4 race weekends for the first season, which is pretty short. But man, I think it's awesome. And I mean, obviously, I'm a Ford guy, so I'm biased, but I think it's great, man. And like you said, especially having a 6-speed back in the car, like that's the way it should be, in my opinion. I mean, I try not to lose that art form. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Did you happen to get a watch on that thing?
What's that?
I was asking Adam, did you happen to get a watch on it when it was at Road Atlanta?
I think I was timing the spec car.
Yeah.
And now so what I found is that was not that was an engineering day. It was not a put a lap down day. But it seemed like they were doing low 30s in the spec car.
That's
pretty quick.
Fast for that, yeah.
I think it makes like a 35 or something.
Yeah, it's and again it might but again if it's an engineering day, when I say low 30s, I mean like 33, 34, 35. That's kind of what I don't think they were doing like a 30.
Yeah.
But my guess is, the GT3 car, it's going to be doing GT3 speed, so that's going to be in the probably. Yeah.
Everything else is homologated, so like we know, GT3 is going to do a 19, and GT4 is going to be a 25, 26. So I was curious about that spec car because I think it'd be interesting to where it stacks up with the MX-5 and the existing stuff.
My guess is going to be faster than MX-5, just because I think it just has a lot more power. Now it's heavier. but I think it's going to have a lot more power.
Yeah.
Again, we'll have Scott on. Actually, I'll text him right now and be like, "Hey, we talked a lot about you. You need to come on." And he's local too, so that makes it even easier. But no, I'm excited. And then even that GTD car that they announced, 300K. Basically, they're going after Porsche and Ferrari and all these, all the luxury brands. They put a transaxle in with all this crazy suspension, active aero. I mean, that thing's gonna be nuts. So it has the front tire on that car is a 325.
Dang. Well, that's good for them. It's good for them for being so inclusive, having the trans in there. That's nice in this day of diversity.
Yes, we're being very diverse on this podcast. And with that, we're going to end this episode of PitBox Social because I think we're going to have Pat go down a rabbit hole there, so we're going to stop.
Pat woke up angry this morning. He was playing Xbox, and
yeah,
that's the best way to. That and golf are his two favorite ways to start the day.
I'm getting better.
Hey, quick question on. I want to try to do a live stream for Petite. So I want to hear if y'all want to try to do that. I think Tyler, you're traveling Saturday of Petite, is what it sounds like.
I am, so I could. Yeah, we can talk about that.
Maybe Friday.
Depends on Pat's schedule because Pat's our Mr. Wilmot here is racing.
You're racing. So what day's your race, Pat?
We run Thursday afternoon and Friday morning at 9:30 or something like that, I think. So either way, I'm going to be pretty intoxicated, I think, by mid-afternoon or so on Friday.
So
awesome. So that's when we're going to do it.
So the podcast.
So I'm going to.
Do we want to do the podcast before or after Pat races? That's the question.
After for sure.
We're going to do it after.
He'll either be elated or like the whole world's fucked. And he's like, I hate it.
So we're going to try. I'm going to attempt to get that set up one way or another to try to find maybe a quiet space to do it. But we're going to try to be live from the racetrack Friday. So stay tuned. Maybe have an audience of 2 people. Maybe it's just us, but we'll try. But so stay tuned for that. But we're gonna end this. We're gonna end this episode here. Again, HSR this weekend. Come find us. We'll post some stuff maybe where we're at. Come find us in the paddock. Pat, good luck down in Sebring. Watch him on YouTube. We'll post the links on the social medias. We're gonna try to get better about getting anything that Pat or Tyler's racing, and we'll try to make sure we have that live for y'all so that y'all can see it. I want to thank our new sponsor, Gran Turismo East. I don't know if they're coming on yet or not, but we're going to thank them.
Thanks for that big fat.
We're going to go ahead and thank them and say, please, we beg of you, all we need is $1.
Be our first sponsor.
Be our first sponsor of the soon-to-be worldwide known, because we are worldwide, baby. All right, guys. Thank y'all, and we'll chat soon. Y'all be safe on track.
Peace.